Hello, my name is Bernhard and I'm a German player of The Dark Eye, and I'm also a backer of the Kickstarter for the English version. And I see a lot of questions asked on the Kickstarter page about the game, about the mechanics, about the rulebook, what you're getting, and people who want to know more about the game, want to see more from the rulebook, more art and stuff. And I thought maybe it's a good idea to walk you through the rules through the PDF. You can see the German PDF here. And I asked Ulysses for permission to do this. I'm no way connected to Ulysses, I don't work them, I'm just a private person who is doing this video. I got permission from Ulysses. That's the only involvement Ulysses has with these videos. So if you have questions about this video, ask me, ask on the YouTube page, ask in the comment section. This is going to be a series of videos where I explain simply what's in the rulebook. I'm not going to cover every page in complete detail. I will flip to the table of contents next and basically tell you what chapters are in the book and what I intend to tell you from these chapters, and if I'm going to tell you about these chapters in detail. I haven't really made a plan. I will figure out what I'm going to tell you mostly while I'm going through this, because I want to get out these videos pretty quickly while the campaign, the Kickstarter campaign, is still on, and because the time is limited until the campaign ends. So I'm going to tell you what I plan to do, but while I'm talking about the chapters, I might change my mind and add something or skip something. So before I go to the table of contents and tell you what I'm going to talk about, I should mention one thing. This video is low resolution. This video is low resolution for two reasons. First, Ulysses required it. They said you cannot make a video where you can actually read the book, the rules. Yeah, no version of the rulebooks as a video, and I can totally understand this. And the second reason, and that is actually most important, I have a crappy internet connection, and if I make a high resolution video, it will basically be too big to upload it in reasonable time. So that's why this is basically a very small image, and that is why you have a video where you can actually not read the text. But I don't think that's a problem. You still can see the art, you can still get an impression of the book, and you couldn't read it anyway because you need it in English, because you don't speak German most of the time, I assume. So before I go through the table of contents, let me tell you something about this cover page and about the name of the Dark Eye. The Dark Eye was originally intended to be called Aventuria. That is basically named over the continent it is playing on, and the designers of this game had no plans to put a dark eye in there or anything like that. That was basically the idea of the company who wanted to release the game. They had actually no investment in the design of the game at all. They just came up, Aventuria is not a cool name. The Dark Eye sounds way cooler. We need something that is a dark eye in the game. We just call it like that. And then the designers had to come up with something very quickly, because the game should go into production very quickly. And they took inspiration from, I don't know what they are called in English, how they are pronounced. The dark eyes are inspired by the Palantir from the Lord of the Rings. This is a dark eye. You can basically look inside there and you will see a different place, a different time or something. And they're very useful, but most of them there are not a lot of them. Most of them have very strong limitations. For example, they only work under certain circumstances. They only work once a month or something. Most of them are not portable, and they are actually not that powerful. For example, you might not be able to see whatever you want. You may be only able to see a certain place, but maybe see that place in different times, or you may see whatever you want, but only a different time in the future or in the past or something. And there are mostly there are quite some limitations about them, and they're actually not that important because they got added artificially, basically, and they're not that important for the game world. That is my opinion. If you remove them from the game world and everything that is connected to them, the loss is not that big. It's bigger, for example, if you remove some of the gods, I think. If you remove one of the gods, then a lot of lore would make no sense, would disappear, thousands of years of history would disappear, and all of that. People would disappear, heroes, artifacts would disappear, or stuff would make simply no sense. And that is not the case with the Dark Eyes, at least not on that level. Yeah, but still, I think it's very handy to have this name now, because there are now, I think, 4-5 different continents in the Dark Eye universe where you can play on, and Aventuria is only one of them, the main continent, the one that is most described and most played on. But there are also 4 others you can play on, and they use all the same rules. And so you will see the Dark Eye logo, and then you will know, it's the Dark Eye. It has this specific skill test, and the specific combat rules and all the mechanics, It is just a different world with a different taste of fantasy or something. So although it is it's a bit of dumb that it has this name, it is quite handy nowadays. So, and what to tell about the cover? This is a specific place that is well documented. It was first described, I think, in 1985. And the limitations where this can be are quite big, because there is a dark eye, and there are not many. And it is some kind under a roof, and this guy in the back, the dwarf, is holding up a chainmail. And I don't want to give you the details, and don't want to spoil you. There is a story about this tower. It was described, as I said. There is a story about this chainmail, and when you know all this, you might know whose home this once was. And I'm not going to tell you the exact details in case you want to go and loot this place or die in there. But I think it's a nice example of how densely described this world is, and how long this description dates back. And because the Dark Eye is known for its dense description of everything and its ongoing history and stuff, and people that are in the game and always appear over and over in campaign books and adventure books and descriptions, background descriptions and stuff. So, but now to the table of contents and what I'm going to talk about in these videos. So, for first chapter is introduction. I'm not going to introduce you in what is a role-playing game, but I'm going to tell a bit about the background of the game. There is a short description of all the regions on the continent, and these regions are closely connected to certain kinds of fantasies, to different playstyles, and I'm going through them very quickly. They lose like 2 or 3 sentences about every region, and I'm going to do this too. Maybe even tell you a bit more. Next chapter is core rules or core mechanics. They simply explain you how tests work, how you roll the test, how you roll the skill test, what different skill tests are there, how do you interpret what the result of a skill test says you. I'm going through this in very detail. You will simply know how the game mechanics work when it comes to tests, skill tests in the Dark Eye, because the mechanics are quite unique, and a lot of people, or at least they asked how this exactly works, because it is so unique and different from other games. And I'm simply explaining you how the rules work, and you will know how the rules work. So next chapter is hero creation. I'm going through all the steps, tell you what steps you have to go through, and how the hero creation worked. I'm not going into detail about this, which means I'm not going to describe you every option you have, because that would be quite extensive. Yeah, that would also mean explaining a lot of chapters in detail. For example, long lists of skills and abilities, and that would just be too much. And even if I wanted or could do this, I couldn't probably upload it because it would take too long to explain you every option you have. But still, you will know in the basics of hero creation. Next 4 chapters are closely connected to hero creation. These are the options you have during hero creation. It is species or race. That's the species or race you choose for your hero at character creation. Are you human? Are you dwarf, for example? Next is culture. That's basically where your hero was raised. The country, most of the time, or a certain region with a certain culture inside a country. Next is profession. That's basically the job you learned while you grew up. There are magical professions, priest professions, and there are only other professions. And the Dark Eye doesn't have a concept of profession actually. It is not like other games where you say I'm a warrior and then you are limited to warrior stuff in leveling up your hero and skills you can take. Basically, you're completely free to do whatever you want, and you don't have to choose one of the professions at all. They are quite optional, and they are only trying to help you to speed up character creation. For example, you can just the character creation works with experience points you get at the beginning of character creation, and then you buy skills from that. You can buy whatever you want. You have to choose species, you have to choose culture, and then you get certain look for your character. If you're like someone with dark skin species or race, then you will have dark skin, and if you're a dwarf, you're going to be short. These limitations you can't get around. Same with culture. When you're from that culture, then you speak a certain language or something. That is set. You can change that, actually. You could change it. But usually you choose these and they give you certain abilities and you stick with them. And professions are completely free. You just buy whatever skills you want and then you say, I'm a thief. I have been a thief up to now before I started adventuring, and then you are a thief. And when you're a thief, you find someone who teaches you fighting with warrior weapons, then you will be fighting with warrior weapons or whatever. And if you can cast spells, you can basically learn any spell you want. During character creation, it is limited. You have to, when you are when you've been educated as a witch, you are going to know mostly witch spells and a few spells from other traditions like magicians or elves. But after that, you can basically learn any spell. There is no limitations. You can learn whatever other spell you want. I think there is a limitation on how good you can become, but you can also overcome these limitations. It just needs experience points to buy certain skills or something. Next chapter is advantages and disadvantages. These are just special things about your character. Things he is very good at. For example, he's better at certain skills, or he can see in the dark, or he is has only one arm as a challenge. This is stuff that's mainly meant to make your character more interesting. Of course, it also will make you more powerful or give you a challenge to overcome if you only with one arm. Next chapter is skills, talents. I'm going to call them talents. These are basically what you would know as skills. That is like alchemy or sneaking or stuff like that. I'm not going to tell a lot about them. Skill tests are described here in this second chapter. Here's a long list and the description, what the different skills mean, and I'm going to tell you something about skills in general, but I'm not going through them in detail, especially not going through all the skills that are there. There are also a list of special abilities. I'm going to explain what is a special ability and what in comparison is a talent. To have you have an idea. I will give you examples of talents and special abilities, though you have a rough idea, but they are quite different, and so you will only see a few examples and still not know everything about them. Next chapter, combat. The combat mechanics are not explained in the core rules because they're quite detailed and long, and I'm going to explain the combat rules in this chapter. You will basically know everything about combat when we are through here. Maybe not everything. We will see. Yeah, how long the video becomes, and then I will decide what I'm going to tell you. Next is magic, and closely connected is the priests and gods chapter. These simply explain you how magicians cast spells, and a list of spells, and a list of rituals and stuff. Going to explain you how you cast spells in detail. You will basically know everything about how a spell is cast. That's very much like like using a skill, a talent. The same mechanics are at work here, but there are certain things you can do with spells. For example, a spell needs a certain time to cast, and then it will have a certain effect, and you can modify them. I'm going to explain the ways you can modify, for example, the time you need to cast and what the result of modifying this time, what it means for casting this spell, if it makes it more difficult or something. I'm not going through the list of spells, that would be too much, but I'll give you some examples. And actually the priest chapter explains the liturgian. The liturgies, I think, is the English name. These are basically spells for priests, and they have the exact same mechanics as the spells for magicians. Liturgies are just spells for priests. They may even have the same effect, but most of the time they differ in effect, especially because the priest spells are closely connected to the ideals of a priest. Yeah, if you're like the priest of the god of justice, you're going to have to spell that help you be in the ideal of that god. You're not going to be able to cast a certain spell that is about hiding and lying and stuff and that. I'm going to tell you something about the priests. No, I will have told you something about the priest in this chapter where it's about the professions. So we only go through the mechanics here, give you examples of the spells, of the liturgies that are in there, and that's it. Next chapter is about a collection of different rules. For example, how you take damage when you fall, or most important, I think, how do I level up? I'll go through this in detail. Leveling up I will cover in detail. The other parts here described here I will figure out while we're going through them. Next chapter is bestiary. The bestiary is quite short. Here we'll flip through it. You will see the art. I give you an example how they are described, the animals, the creatures. But I'm not going, although it is short, I'm not going to cover this in detail. We will see what I'm going to tell you when I go through the bestiary. Next is equipment. There's a long list of equipment. I'm not going through that. There is also here the first paragraph says it's about currency and measurement and weight. I'm going to tell you something about that. But then we will skip the rest because it's only long lists of equipment. Next chapter is tips. Tips for game masters, tips for players, how to play. I think I'm going to completely skip this because I'm not going to want to explain you how a role-playing game works, but how the dark eye works. And then we have the appendix, and we will see if there's anything of interest in there. So that's it for this video. Next video will be the introduction chapter. If you have any questions, ask in the comment sections. I'll try to answer. I don't know if, depending on how many people are asking and how many time I have, it may take a bit of time till I can answer. If you are a German player or know the German rules, know the rules, and know the answer of a question that I get asked there, please feel free to answer. And if you notice some mistakes I'm making, then please comment or send me a message so I can maybe correct it or something. Also, if you have questions about the chapters, ask best probably about the chapter, or if you really would know a topic I'm not covering, then ask in the chapters, the videos to the chapters, and I might make another video or explain something in the comments. So, but that's it for this video. Next video will be about the introduction and a bit about the background of the world and such. So thanks for your attention, and bye.